Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. I'm Rosebud Reads, and welcome to my book garden. Um, Also, welcome to Peerless, Book 2, Part 3. I actually got it right today. I had time to double check. Yeah. Hello, Momar's Rover. How are you doing tonight? Did you do anything fun this weekend? I'm trying to think back, and I don't think I did anything super fun. I caught up on a couple shows, um, looked into a couple potential new shows, did some cleaning. Nothing too extraordinary. Prepped for the con that I have this coming weekend, but other than that, um, yeah, just life. So Mars Rover says, going good. Honestly, I mostly did chores. I'm right there with you. No. But yeah, welcome. I am super excited for this week. And on that note, like just a reminder, I'll probably say it like 3 more times throughout, but the next recording stream, however we want to phrase it, is tomorrow instead of Thursday. I thought I'd just mention that right off the bat. So just keep that in mind. Same time, just different day. Logistics. So this is a more mature stream. So you know what that means. There'll be more mature language. There might be some triggering things. I'm usually pretty good about mentioning when something might be triggering or putting in little timestamps. So if you do know you have some kind of trigger, usually I'll catch it and mention it. But this is my first time reading this. I will not know what's coming. So, mind the timestamps. I timestamp for chapters, but yeah, it will be very obvious if there's something going on. I do not own anything. The only thing I own is the physical copy in front of me and my time, and sometimes not even that. Oftentimes, not even that. I do not speak. I'm not fluent. So I may pronounce some things in a very interesting way, but I'm open to constructive criticism. And hello, Annika. But please be nice about it. I'm doing my best. It just might come out a little funky. Trying to think. I'm not sponsored by Seven Seas. I don't make anything. I'm not sponsored by anybody, actually. It'd be interesting. I'm just doing this because I can, because I want to get these works out there. But yeah, how you doing, Annika? I saw the keychains you made for Xuexing Day. They look very nice. Did you have a good weekend? Trying not to touch anything. I just painted by nails. It's a new paint. And it actually dries quickly, so I'm like, ooh, but I'm still not wanting to smudge it. Like, it was pretty chill. You ordered volume 11. Very nice. I ordered it too. I'm so behind on the rest of them. But I wanted to make sure to get the special edition. So that's coming, as well as the 4th Grandmaster Demonic Cultivation hardcover. It got delayed. It was supposed to be here today, but it'll probably be here for the stream tomorrow. So that'll be exciting. Oh, I do have something exciting to share. So I've told you and shown you some of the pin clubs that the pin club I'm part of from Boot Chanel. I love their stuff. Last time I think I showed the Wangxian, but then this one was last month or 2 months ago. It's Wen Ning, and he is absolutely adorable. Sorry, my hands are so shaky, but I'm trying. I love that he has painted nails. Then here is the sticker where he looks super soft. But I love that she does side characters and how detailed it is. But yeah, if you have the means, Bouchanel is definitely someone I could see people actually. She's one of the first people I've actually like done a subscription for on Patreon. To like, I'm not chilling, not saying you should or have to, but like I enjoy her stuff. Shipping sometimes takes a while because she is based in France, but like I think she's pretty cool. And her stuff is gorgeous. So I'm going to shill her a little bit. But yeah. Okay. Trying not to touch anything. I don't know if I have anything else to add. I've just been doing a lot of prepping for the con this coming weekend and just sleeping and or doom scrolling. So yeah. Oh, you have some news. What's going on, Annika? Oh, congratulations! That's super exciting. Oh, good job. I'm really happy for you. That's very exciting. Did you already start or are you starting soon? Is it in the same company or a different company? Only if you want to share. But I'm curious. Hot. The tea is very hot today. Whew. Yeah, I'm trying to think what happened since last time. But yeah. I started the second week of April. It's the same company, but I'm moving from underwriting to the law department. Same pay, but hopefully more job security. That is fantastic. I'm really happy for you. Like that sounds like complicated, but I'm happy about the job security because like it's a crazy world out there. So anything we can do to like make ourselves more marketable or like more important and hopefully at stability, like power to you. Well, good. All right. I don't really have anything else to add. I'm kind of willing to get started. I know it's kind of early for beginning of the week, but yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, they're automating a ton of jobs in underwriting, so my whole team is jumping ship. Ay, ay, ay. Well, I'm glad you found something, and it sounds like even if it's not a up in pay, at least it's an up in security. So maybe it will be an up in pay soon. You never know. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So we'll start at 8:45. I'm gonna hopefully not wreck my nails. Did I just wreck my nail? I don't think so. Ah! Oh my gosh. Still okay, I think. Yeah, definitely let us know. Keep us posted. All right, we're just gonna go with 9 minutes. Okay. Okay. So, last time. Okay. Let's see. So, Gao Yi, there's this whole kerfuffle at the birthday banquet of which one is it? I think it was Xing Mao's mother. There was a server that was going to offer him poison wine started this big kerfuffle. For a while, it was Duan Qihu who was being blamed, and then basically Mao was basically like, well, it was either Duan Qihu or Xing Mao that was like kind of had the thought of like, well, if I'm already being blamed, like, I mean, I could kill him right now. And the opposite party noticed the bloodlust in their eyes, and it started this big whole thing. But now it kind of got slightly resolved, not really, but we ended up looking for the third minister, the third like the third in line for his backup. And then they found out it was further, so many lines down, but now they're trying to persuade Gao Yi to kind of start taking charge and wait until one side of the two warring factions to weaken. When they least expect it, will subdue them and absorb their forces. Once one's taken care of, the other won't pose a problem. Gao Yi is a toothless, bumbling old fool, content with muddling his way through life. Why would he risk standing with you against Duan Qihu and Xing Mao? Chubuchu smiled mysteriously. Everyone has their weaknesses. I know how to deal with Gao Yi, but we can't rely solely on his men. They're not enough. So basically, Chubuchu talked Peng Xiang into lending him some of the men from the Jijian Bureau. And he did this by giving him the seal of Chubuchu, where now Peng Xiang found out, like, your name is really Chubuchu, and it means I won't go. And he finds out that Chubuchu has been using it since he was 10 and didn't give his real name, but it works. So they also agree to go to Liugong City to summon troops. And they decide that's a deal. And the plan that they decide to go with is let's see, what was plan A, the one they decided to go with? Let's see. Where's plan A? Oh, okay, so they're in the cursed inn, and then he heard this distressing sound from outside. Help me, please. I'm begging you, help me. It was a woman's voice, barely audible. Oh, it was a little loud. Brimming with hatred and resentment. To those who listened closely, it seemed to echo with endless grievances. Though it was late spring, a chill clung to the nights. This voice made one's very bones tremble. Who would cry for justice in the middle of the night? And who would run to a well behind an inn rather than shouting for it at the county office? The answer was obvious. The cries came not from a living person, but from a ghost. Peng Xiang sighed. He gave up on sleep and sat up. Whoever had disturbed his rest, he'd beat them until there wasn't enough left to make a second ghost. But before that, he patted the shoulder of the man beside him. Wake up. There's a ghost outside. If he couldn't sleep, no one else would either. Chubuchu rolled over, put his back to Feng Xiao, and tugged the blanket right up over his head. Rousing Chubuchu wasn't impossible, but Feng Xiao knew it would put him in a foul mood. And whenever Chubuchu was in a foul mood, he started laying traps for Feng Xiao. Feng Xiao wasn't afraid of traps. On the contrary, he quite enjoyed matching wits with Chu Bu Chu. But as he'd just won around that day, obtaining not only Chu Bu Chu's personal seal, but also a favor from the Shu Yue Bureau, he decided to quit while he was ahead and enjoy his victory for a few days at least. He thought for a moment, then switched tactics. Feng Xiao walked over to the clothes rack where his jacket hung and picked up the basin of water he used to wash his feet before bed. He crossed to the window, then flung the contents of the basin in the direction of the dry well. In a shrill falsetto, he exclaimed, "Who is that bumbling and howling in the middle of the night, disturbing a lady's good rest?" And that is where we left off last time. All right. Hot. All right. Chapter 52. It was a cold night, heavy with dew and filled with the murmurs and wails of ghosts. Drifting between dreams and waking, the guests at the inn heard a voice that sounded both very near and terribly distant. It blew in with the chill wind, sweeping into their rooms and under their blankets, funneling into their ears and shaking them out of slumber. Then came Feng Xiao's shout. Even the ghost was shocked into silence, never mind the living. Chu Bu Chu wasn't a corpse, and he shared a room with Feng Xiao. He, too, jerked awake. Due to his poor health, whenever he was woken abruptly, his heart pounded like a drum. This time was no exception. Feng Xiao looked over, his face the very picture of innocence. "Did I wake you? Sorry, I was yelling at someone outside. You should sleep a little longer." He'd expected Chu Bu Chu to explode, but as the seconds ticked past, Chu Bu Chu remained on the bed, clutching his blanket in drowsy bewilderment. Had Chu Bu Chu been shocked silly by his shouting? Feng Xiao stepped over to the bed and took hold of Chu Bu Chu's chin, turning Chu Bu Chu's face towards him. Chu Bu Chu was like this whenever he woke up. How long his days lasted depended on whether he'd had enough sleep. And right then, it was clear sleep was sorely lacking. It was at times like this that Chu Bu Chu's guard was at its lowest and he became easier to bully. Feeling mischievous, Feng Xiao patted his head. "My good child," he said in a kindly tone, "time to get up and see some ghosts." Finally, Chu Bu Chu's gaze sharpened. He slapped Feng Xiao's hand away and sighed. "Not only must we see ghosts, we'll have to become them." To anyone else, he'd seem to be speaking nonsense, but Feng Xiao was not only took his meaning, he thought it deeply interesting. "Has someone come up with the same plan as you?" Chu Bu Chu didn't answer. "Do you remember when we first checked in? The guide Cheng Cheng mentioned that there was a ghost behind the inn and that they'd found a body in the well. I looked into it. Apparently a couple of bones were found at the bottom. No one can say when they appeared or who left them. They may have been tossed in after the victim's death, or the victim may have been thrown in and died down there. The incident was a long time ago, and no one stepped forward to identify the body, so the whole thing was clumsily covered up." Chu Bu Chu rubbed his eyes as if he were trying to wipe away his fatigue. When Cheng Cheng mentioned the dry well that day, he looked terrified. Feng Xiao continued in meaningful tones. But when others talked about it, they seemed more curious than afraid. "The dry well, Cheng Cheng, Li Fei, the third steward, Duan Qihu," Chu Bu Chu said. "Could there be some link between all of them?" Li Fei and the third steward were Xing Mao's men. They shouldn't have any connection to Duan Qihu. But the third steward colluded with Yu Xiu to poison Duan Qihu. Xing Mao definitely didn't order him to do so. It's possible the others share some connection we're not aware of. Chu Bu Chu wasn't the only one awakened by Feng Xiao's cries. Several more guests stumbled groggily from their beds to complain. Who was shouting crude words outside, disturbing the whole inn? A few brave souls rose and threw on their clothes. thinking to go see what had happened at the well. Through it all, the instigator sat at the table, sipping cold tea at his leisure. Look at me. If I went to play a ghost now, would I be more convincing than the one we heard earlier? Peng Xiao had removed the disguise Xiao Xian had created for him. His uncombed hair hung loose over his shoulders, and he sat at the table in a single thin robe, not seeming to feel the cold. His handsome face glowed in the candlelight, practically flawless. Chu watched him for a moment. Put on a layer of pearl powder, then you'll look the part. You're right, Feng Xiao said with a smile. I'll get some from Xiao Xian. With that, he really did stand and start to walk out. But as he reached the door, he remembered something and turned. By the way, when I came back this evening, I noticed Yushu's room was empty. He's probably gone. Chu frowned slightly. Mysterious man. Even now, his whereabouts were unknown. If there existed anyone in this world Chu couldn't figure out, Yushu was undoubtedly one such man. The Jade of Heaven Lake had been recovered and the case closed. Yushu had no call to remain in Liugong City. They had expected him to return to the capital and the Prince of Jin's side, but he hadn't done so. Instead, he'd gone west and incited the third steward to poison Duan Qihu. By the way, that's the name. Not minister, but steward. But Duan Qihu didn't know Yu Xiu. What grudge did Yu Xiu have against him? What was his goal? Did the haunting of the inn involve him as well? And if not, who was responsible? The tiny city of Chiamo held an incredible number of secrets. They had fermented in the dark for years, and now they were bubbling over. With Chu and Feng Xiao joining the fray, the city was sure to get even livelier. Chu slowly pulled aside the covers and bent to pull on his boots. A sudden gust of wind blew the window open with a bang, and the candle guttered and went out. Feeble moonlight fell across the stark white face outside. Chu. For a moment, Chu didn't answer. Then he said impassively, I told you to go scare Gao Yi, not me. Duan Qihu sat before a jug of wine. He'd once been a highwayman, in plain speech, a thief and a murderer. Those who lived in fertile lands enjoyed a life free of restraint, feasting and drinking, repaying kindness with kindness and grudge with grudge. That was the hallmark of a true man, they'd boast. Duan Qihu, however, wasn't a drinker. In his view, alcohol corroded the mind and led people unwillingly to their deaths. He'd lost several companions to drink in his youth, and from that point on, he hadn't touched a drop. Yet today he was restless, so much so that he had turned to a flask of wine to ease his worries. He had started with nothing to his name and clawed his way to his position today. He'd lost much, but also gained greatly, and made just as many friends as enemies. Many wished for his death, but Duan Qihu had never cared. He laughed at them in contempt. They were beneath his notice, not worth mentioning. But today was different. When his beloved concubine pushed the door open with a pot of sugar-braised pears, she found Duan Qihu staring solemnly at the table as if something extraordinary sat upon it. My lord, her syllables were drawn out with a hint of sweet coquettishness. Normally, upon hearing her voice, Duan Qihu would have already stood with a smile on his face. But tonight, he remained motionless. Now fairly displeased, the concubine stepped forward and set down the pears, ready to drape herself over him. There was a soft thud as ceramic met wood. It wasn't loud, but Duan Qihu flinched as if startled. When he raised his head to see the face of his concubine mere inches away, he jerked back in his seat, his face twisting ferociously. His concubine had never seen such an expression on him and gasped in shock. In the next moment, a sharp pain tore through her stomach, and the scenery blurred as Duan Qihu kicked her towards the door, which slammed open as she crashed heavily to the ground. She spat a mouthful of blood, her face a mask of fear, before promptly fainting from the pain. The servants guarding the room were stunned. Thinking there was some emergency inside, they rushed in and found Duan Qihu still sitting, his face pale and chest heaving. My lord. Go! It's nothing. Duan Qihu waved the servants off. Someone take her away. When his wife heard the news, she hurried over, thinking the concubine had done something to anger him. Duan Qihu particularly favored this concubine, to the extent of even ignoring his wife. This had eaten at Lady Duan for a long time. Though she looked worried now, she was secretly delighted. But Duan Qihu had no interest in women's squabbles. Lady Duan, too, he dismissed with a few words, nor did he call another concubine to serve him. He rose and went into the garden to relax. The hour was late, and all was dark and silent, but the lanterns hanging in the garden illuminated the area brightly. This alone was evidence of the wealth and strength of the Duan family. Duan Qihu walked for some time with his hands behind his back. Slowly, he regained his calm, but his mood was terrible. What he hadn't told anyone was that in the moment he glimpsed his concubine, he'd seen another face. Perhaps he was overtired, or perhaps it was the lingering influence of the incident at the banquet. Duan Qihu's brow furrowed again at the thought of the dead third steward, as well as the man mentioned by the Qi Yue monastery disciple, Yan Xuexing. Duan Qihu. A mournful voice wailed beside his ear. It sounded like a woman, gasping out her last words as someone tightened their hands around her neck. On the brink of death, yet forcing her eyes open, blood trickling from the corners of her mouth and staining her teeth as she spat and hissed from the depths of hell. Who's there? Fuck off! Don't skulk around like a ghost, Duan Qihu roared. Behind him, the two servants accompanying their master exchanged a glance. They hadn't heard anything at all. Right, so there's a picture. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I'm covering her face. I think that's probably Lady Chuan. Yep, he is definitely not having a good time. I agree. Hot. Okay. Oh, wow. Perfect timing. 29. Okay. Chapter 53. Duan Qihu's words had no effect on the miserable wails. They came again and again, just at the edges of his hearing. First, they seemed to be ahead of him, then to the left, his right, but no matter which way he looked, Duan Qihu couldn't discover the source. eerier still was that he seemed to be the only one who could hear. The two servants behind him looked bewildered, unsure to whom he spoke. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Someone was playing tricks on him. Breathing harshly, Duan Qihu fought to remain calm. His eardrums throbbed, and the flames of his rage threatened to burst even as he tamped them down. Yet not only did his emotions not settle, his eyes reddened as his panic grew. "Which great master wishes to see me?" he roared. "Show yourself! Why use such cowardly tactics? It's laughable!" "Duan Qihu, do you remember? You owe me a life." "I owe many lives. Not everyone is qualified to claim theirs." Duan Qihu threw his head back in an icy laugh. "Ha ha ha ha!" His lavish city clothes couldn't disguise the bandit's swagger, born of decades on the roads. The imperious nature that had made him famous was on full display. The two servants locked eyes, their faces full of terror. Duan Qihu seemed to be talking to the air, an illusion only he could see and no one else. They suspected their master had been possessed. I feel like that he hasn't done anything to them yet, but like the sheer facts that they're dealing with this, I feel like is like getting close to an injustice to service workers. We're gonna have to just wait and watch. Duan Qihu, however, knew that this wasn't a case of possession. The culprit had to be a martial artist masquerading as a ghost, using their internal energy to manipulate sound and confuse his senses. He closed his eyes and listened. Then he leapt into the air, soaring up into a nearby osmanthus tree. Its branches bore no flowers at this time of year. Osmanthus trees weren't suited to the desert, but with enough money, even ghosts might do your bidding, never mind a humble tree. It grew in the Duan family garden just as it would in a misty Jiangnan courtyard. To sustain such a garden in a border city like Qiamo was a greater expense than the gardens of all Jiannan's most lavish mansions. Yeah, his reaction to the concubine makes me think some injustices be coming. I agree, Annika. The osmanthus tree swayed in the night breeze. In the twinkling of an eye, Duan Qihu landed atop it. Had Peng Xiang been present, he'd have seen that Duan Qihu wasn't just an expert in finger techniques. His qigong was also exemplary. A man almost 7 feet tall perched atop a branch, no thicker than a finger, yet the branch didn't snap or even shiver. This alone put him among the ranks of first-class experts. But as he raised his eyes and looked around, he saw nothing but flowers and trees, lush and evenly spaced. Other than the two servants running towards him, there was no one else. Duan Qihu, 20 years. It's been 20 years. He looked out over the garden. He refused to believe anyone could escape his sweeping gaze, no matter how well hidden. All was still. The servants looked up from the base of the tree, unsure what to do. My lord, shall we call someone?" Duan Qihu didn't answer. In the quarter hour he'd been standing atop the tree, the woman's voice in his ears had continued to repeat the same two words. 20 years. 20 years ago. 20 years ago, Duan Qihu had just joined a group of bandits and was still a nobody in the bandit stronghold. He longed to climb higher, to achieve great things, to be surrounded by soft women and chests overflowing with gold and silver, just like the bandit chieftains. Whenever his band went down the mountain to plunder, he always rode at the forefront. Though he suffered many injuries, he also gained the respect of his supervisors. Eventually, he replaced the third chieftain and gradually climbed the ranks, transforming his mountain stronghold into the largest group of horse-mounted bandits in the region. He'd amassed power and wealth until he'd become the Duan Qihu of today. No one could achieve fame and success without some blood on their hands. Duan Qihu was certain even those who sat at the pinnacle of imperial power were weighed down with blood debts, including the current emperors of Su and southern Chen, who among them hadn't cut their way through human flesh as one might hack apart melons. How could they have seized such incredible power? Duan Qihu smiled coldly. 20 years ago, he'd already killed too many people. If there was such a thing as ghosts, they'd have to line up for their vengeance. A nameless little ghost who'd popped up out of nowhere would never get her chance. He broke off a twig from the osmanthus tree and jumped down. His wrist twitched, and leaves from the twig shot out in all directions. The two servants were unprepared. The tender leaves instantly pierced their throats, and they collapsed to the ground before they even had a chance to scream. Blood pooled beneath their bodies, and the scent of blood rose into the air. The soft, sorrowful voice that had fallen silent as well. So it really was someone playing tricks, Duan Qihu thought to himself, face stony. He waved a hand, summoning another servant to drag the two corpses away. Someone else would clean up the garden. When he returned tomorrow, not a single drop of blood would remain. It would be pristine and peaceful, as if no one had ever died there at all. Duan Qihu's mood lifted a little. There it is. We got our injustice to service workers. All right, which I guess I'll do the count now. We have 5, 10, 15, 20, 21 injustices to service workers, 1 justice to service workers, 2 injustices to animals, 4 injustices to innocents. I'm going to say that still just goes under service workers, even though they were completely innocent. Shamelessness counter is 11, and injustices to Pei Ming individually are 8. Okay. Moving back in. When Duan Qihu's wife heard he'd killed someone in the garden, she once again came to see him. That seems like a poor decision. Just saying. His wife had been with him since the beginning and stuck by his side through thick and thin. Though Duan Qihu rarely spent the night with her these days, his respect was far greater for her than his concubine. When she arrived, he didn't drive her away. They sat together for a moment. Whatever's weighing on you, even if I can't help, I can still lend an ear. As inadequate as I may be, I will always be yours. These words brought Duan Qihu no comfort. He furrowed his brow and asked, 20 years ago, do you remember anything significant that happened back then? Duan Qihu's wife thought it over. At the end of that year, you returned to the mountain and said you'd bagged something big. You became the third chieftain soon after. Since then, our lives have gotten better and better. His wife had never accompanied him on raids, so she only knew so much. But Duan Qihu, too, remembered that year as one he'd become the third chieftain. It had been an important turning point in his life, not one easily forgotten. That year, you returned from a long journey happier than usual. When I asked, all you said was that you'd landed a huge prize this time. You wouldn't tell me anything more. She sighed. I knew how you were making a living out there. I burn incense every day and pray to the bodhisattvas for your sake, so that your past sins may be forgiven. If there should be any retribution, let it be borne by me, your wife. Duan Qihu had grown impatient and was about to stand and leave. But at the word retribution, his expression shifted. Lady Duan paid no heed. The older she got, the less she could resist chattering. She continued to prattle on. Yeah, she seems pretty sweet for a warlord. Let's be real. That's basically what he is a warlord at this point. Enough! Duan Qihu leapt to his feet. It's late. You should rest. I'm going back! Husband! Lady Duan could only watch as he left with a flick of his sleeves. She didn't know what she'd said wrong. He'd been fine just a moment ago. Duan Qihu returned to his room and sent everyone away. He lay in bed, staring at the curtains over his head until drowsiness overcame him and his eyelids grew heavy. But just as he was about to fall into a shallow slumber, the voice rang out again. Duan Qihu, you owe me a life. Duan Qihu's eyes snapped open and he sprang upright. I am the master of my life and my fate. Even the heavens can't snatch my life from me. You've got no chance. A soul like you should have gone to the underworld long ago. Choose wisely or don't blame me for beating you until you scatter. You'll never be able to reincarnate even if you want to. He snarled through gritted teeth, eyes bloodshot as he glared outside. But the voice continued unabated, sounding both near and far away. Duan Qihu, pay blood with blood. The wind carried the faint scent of copper. Duan Qihu was coming from the direction of the garden pond. If Duan Qihu had been a man who sat around waiting to be killed, he would be dead 8 or 10 times over. He called for his 2 most trusted guards and rushed in the direction of the garden pond. The closer they got, the stronger the stench of blood grew. Oh, don't tell me it's going to be his wife. She seems like a good enough lady, like for him. Hang on. The closer they got, the stronger the stench of blood grew. One guard cried out, My lord, look! Duan Qihu saw a corpse by the pond. One of the servants he'd killed earlier. Didn't I tell them to clean this up? He raged, thinking to find his slacking servants who had dumped the body there. But in the next moment, a cold, slimy gaze seemed to fix on the back of his neck. His hair stood on end. Danger! He turned and struck out with a palm, yet met only air. Duan Qihu! An icy female voice sounded in his ear from right where the guards should have been standing. Duan Qihu had walked down countless dark paths and braved innumerable storms. He was no stranger to struggling at the limits of life and death. But at that moment, he could no longer contain the terror in his heart. A savage expression came over his face, and he roared, Who the fuck are you? Show yourself! In the Chiao County office the next morning, Gao Yi's restless hand slipped as he reached for the tea the maid was offering, sending the cup shattering to the ground. Hot tea splashed onto his clothes and boots, scalding the back of his hand. He yelped and leapt a foot into the air. Yay! The maid rushed to apologize, but Gao Yi waved her away, leaving sharp fragments littering the floor. He took out the tortoise shell he used for divination with great care, but instead of his usual silent prayer, he sank into a stupor until a servant came to inform him guests had arrived. Send them away, Gao Yi said impatiently. Send them away, Gao Yi said impatiently. He was in no mood to receive anyone. But sir, the servant exclaimed in disbelief. The man is claiming to be the nephew of the king of Kucha. He said he saw something strange in the sky above the city last night and that it was pointing to this building. Gao Yi's heart pounded. Let him in! Within moments, Chubuchu and Peng Xiang stood inside the office. Magistrate, Chubuchu said at once, there's an impure aura between your brows. The area has turned black. I fear you've been tainted with some kind of negative energy. Oh, they're gonna mess with him. Oh boy. Okay. This should be good. Yeah, I think so too, Annika. 45. Chapter 54. What kind of person would tell someone they're contaminated the minute they saw them? Gao Yi frowned, but fear quickly got the better of him. Why do you say so? In a fortunate coincidence, I learned the art of mysticism from a young age, said Chubuchu. I can read auras and physiognomy. Physiognomy? Physiognomy. The moment I entered, I saw a black aura curling from your forehead, around your forehead. I fear you may have encountered some dark influence yesterday. Chubuchu was being far too familiar, but after the scare Gao Yi had gotten last night, he both desperately needed someone to confide in and lacked the presence of mind to be suspicious. He hemmed and hawed, but ultimately couldn't resist asking, Did you too encounter something strange last night? I did, Chubuchu nodded. To tell the truth, it's for this very reason that we came to the magistrate so early this morning. Tell me, quickly! Chubuchu sketched a rough summary of the ghostly wailing that they'd heard the night before. Interestingly, his story made no mention of Peng Xiao's thunderous shouting, nor the basin of water he'd used to wash his feet. Color drained from Gao Yi's face. Could you make out what the ghost was saying? It was crying about a horrific death, some kind of injustice. Did the magistrate hear it too last night as well? The ghost's wailing. Now that he knew he wasn't alone, many of Gao Yi's doubts evaporated into relief. Now that he knew, although he was still unlucky, he was at least fortunate to have another witness backing him up. He lowered his voice and said cryptically, I didn't just hear it. I saw it. Chubuchu and Peng Xiao glanced at each other in surprise. What did it look like? Was it really the ghost of a woman? I didn't have a clear view. It was dressed in white, hair unbound and scattered, very thin and tall. I couldn't say if the voice was male or female. It appeared right next to my bed, but the instant I called for someone, it disappeared. Every time I lay down, its voice would ring in my ears, sounding both close and distant, crying about its death and begging me for vengeance. Peng Xiao grabbed Chubuchu's sleeves, eyes wide with alarm. Husband! It didn't spare even the magistrate! Oh, perhaps we'll encounter the ghost again tonight. Husband, should we change inns? Now it makes sense, Chubuchu said solemn. I performed divination before we left, and the readings were calamitous. It seems that it was not merely an ill omen, but a harbinger of the 1,000 weeping ghosts. Just the words made Gao Yi's skin crawl. What are the 1,000 weeping ghosts? If a great injustice occurred 20 years or so ago, when there were no court officials in the city for the victims to appeal to, the resentment will have accumulated with the passage of years. The energy is concentrated around Duan Qihu. I could sense it. This is all because we went to the Xing family's banquet. We were contaminated by the heavy resentment around Duan Qihu. That's why it's become so easy to see negative forces like your aura, Lord Magistrate. In Gao Yi's opinion, the vengeful ghost was too inconsiderate. Every debt has its debtor. If it wants revenge, it should seek out its nemesis. What's the point of disturbing our rest? It's simply not reasonable. I love how he's trying to logic ghosts. Like, hey, I didn't do anything to you. Like, why are you bugging me with it? Like, that's not fair. Peng Xiao resumed his role as the straight man. Husband, if you're right, does that mean things will get worse? Undoubtedly, said Jubachu. Each day the case is ignored is another day the resentment will deepen. Look at last night. It didn't merely appear at the magistrate's mansion. Even the inn we were staying at encountered the ghost. The luck of others in the city is bound to be affected if this continues. Once that happens, the 1,000 weeping ghosts will descend. One of Chubachu's points concerned Gao Yi greatly. What happens if one's luck is affected? In mild cases, misfortune will follow you everywhere. In severe ones, you'll be plagued by evil spirits and become confused and disoriented. For merchants, their business will founder. For officials, their career will suffer setbacks. Feng Xiao gasped. Husband, won't we be struck by bad luck as well? Or merely passerby? Whom have we provoked? Hurry, let us leave the city while we can. This isn't our home. We must leave for... I'm going to reread that whole paragraph. I messed up, like, all of it. Feng Xiao gasped. Husband, won't we be struck by bad luck as well? We're merely passerbys. Whom have we provoked? Hurry, let us leave the city while we can. This isn't our home. We must leave them to suffer their own bad luck. Gao Yi stared as Feng Xiao continued. Husband, I'm so frightened. If this carries on, will there be a night I wake up and see a ghost sleeping beside me instead of your dear self? Chubuchu shot him a furtive glance. Enough. Don't overdo it. Any more is overkill. Look how scared he is, said Feng Xiao's answering look. So I've embellished a little. This way you'll be too spooked to sleep tonight. Gao Yi didn't notice their silent conversation. He was scared, witless. Though he remained outwardly wary, in his heart he was largely convinced. Someone like Duan Qihu, who'd pulled himself up by his bootstraps, might not have been so gullible. But Gao Yi had always believed in divination and the idea of good and ill omens. Half the city knew this incompetent magistrate would cower in his house the entire day if his coin showed bad fortune. This time he'd seen a ghost with his own 2 eyes and hadn't gotten a wink of sleep because of it. Now that he'd been frightened again by Feng Xiao and Chubuchu, his nerves were shot. Judging they'd applied enough heat, Chubuchu asked, Has the magistrate considered investigating the case so the victim may rest in peace? The best course is to resolve the matter once and for all. Gao Yi smiled bitterly. You speak as if it's easy. Where would I start and whom would I investigate? Surely you don't suggest I knock on Duan Qihu's door and ask him if he's ever killed anyone? The case is 20 years old at least. I've only been in Qiamo a few years. I don't even have a file on the case, let alone a corpse. The haunting seemed to have started at the inn's dry well. We might find something if we send someone down to search it. There are plenty of skilled coroners capable of extracting clues from bare bones. Lord Magistrate, this matter affects not only the luck of the city, but your own personal fortunes. You don't want to remain a county magistrate here for the rest of your life, do you? What do you mean? Gao Yi furrowed his brow. Take this opportunity to investigate Duan Qihu. Then you can strike a blow against Xing Mao and eliminate both major factions of Qiamo in one fell swoop, Chubuchu explained. You can free yourself from being a puppet magistrate while recording a great achievement. You might even be promoted. An achievement of this magnitude could raise you to a marquis. Gao Yi shook his head. He'd been here for several years, long enough to understand how deeply Duan Qihu and Xing Mao's factions were rooted. Unless the court sent an army to crush them, he'd never eliminate either of these men's influences. At yesterday's banquet, Xing Mao's subordinates were exposed trying to poison Duan Qihu. Xing Mao denied his involvement in the firmest terms. But do you think Duan Qihu believes him? Xing Mao certainly knows he doesn't. To protect himself, he'll make the first move to consolidate his power. Magistrate Gao, how do you know you won't be his next target? Stop talking! Stop talking! I can't do it! Gao Yi fell silent as realization struck. When he spoke next, his face was dark with suspicion. You're not the nephew of the king of Kucha. Who are you? Kucha had never involved itself in Qiamo's affairs. Why would the king's nephew encourage Gao Yi to overthrow Xing Mao and Duan Qihu? That's true. I'm not from Kucha, Chubuchu said coldly. Gao Yi, your death is nigh. You still think you can stand to the side? He took out a small lacquered wood seal and threw it down before Gao Yi. Look at this. Gao Yi picked it up doubtfully. When he saw what it was, he stared. He started. Officials who held multiple positions commonly commissioned 2 or even 3-sided seals for ease of use. The seal Chubuchu had tossed before Gao Yi had more than 6 sides. The seal was the genuine article. Chubuchu didn't like to expose his position in the Shuoyue Bureau, but like Peng Xiang, he held a fair number of other titles. Altogether, it made an intimidating impression. 2 of the seal's sides were engraved with Glorious Grand Master and Imperial Censor. The former had no true authority. It was essentially an honorary title, but it was one the emperor granted to officials with great achievements. The latter title of Imperial Censor had been established only the previous year. Its rank wasn't high, so not many were familiar with it. But Gao Yi had heard from his friends in the capital that the role of this position was to impeach corrupt and tyrannical officials, as well as manage ceremonial affairs for the 3 departments and 6 ministries. Its power and authority were unprecedented. Though an imperial censor had to bow before many officials, the authority he wielded was enough to frighten anyone. The title of Glorious Grand Master was of the 3rd rank, while the imperial censor was merely of the 8th. But an official's highest-ranking title was what mattered. When Gao Yi met Chubuchu, he should be the one to bow. But something was still off. This was a small border town. What privileged minister of the court would come here and subject themselves to the sand? Why would a 3rd-rank official pop up in the middle of the desert? I'm investigating an important case and stopped here along the way. To remain discreet, I traveled under the guise of the king of Kucha's nephew, Gao Yi. After seeing this seal, do you still want to question me? Chubuchu had already deceived Gao Yi once. Naturally, the magistrate was still on his guard. Dare I ask, Your Excellency, what case you are investigating? What does it have to do with me? His message was clear. Even if Chubuchu was an imperial censor, he couldn't order Gao Yi around. Chubuchu looked at him coolly. The imperial court has ordered me in Suyab in the western cognate. Do you understand now? Gao Yi was not ignorant of the court's many disagreements with the Gokturks over the past 2 years. Any mission related to the Gokturks must be one of great importance. He felt a chill run through him as comprehension dawned. Peng Xiang gave the table before him a tap, startling Gao Yi from his thoughts. He didn't use much force. Gao Yi didn't even hear a sound, but the entire table crumbled to sawdust, drifting to the ground and heaping upon the cattail mat. Magistrate Gao, said Feng Xiao gently, what do you think of my martial arts? Gao Yi swallowed hard and squeaked out, Exceptional! Feng Xiao smiled. Who could possibly order a martial artist of my caliber around? Is there anywhere I can't go? Perhaps you think we're petty con men. Wouldn't such a thing be unworthy of my talents? If Chu Lengjun isn't who he claims, would I be at his beck and call? Chubuchu's official seal had gone a long way towards convincing Gao Yi. Under Feng Xiao's intimidation, he cast away the last of his doubts. Gao Yi stood and cupped his hands. How should I address you, sir? Chu, written with the characters Shan and Zhui. Chubuchu. Chu Langjun, said Gao Yi. You are a high-ranking official charged with heavy responsibilities. Perhaps it's not my place to ask, but your mission seems to have little to do with Duan Qihu's case. My business, indeed, has nothing to do with Qiaomo, but I don't wish to come back on my return trip to find our court-appointed magistrate is dead and Qiaomo has become the new kingdom of Shanshan. Gao Yi chuckled dryly, waving the remark off. Don't say something so frightening. Fool! Do you know the Xing residence conceals more than 5,000 sets of armor, and that aside from their estate, they have 2 granaries and treasuries hidden elsewhere in the city? These combined are more than enough to seize Qiaomo. Chubuchu had wanted to slam his palms on the table to intimidate him further. But alas, it had been smashed to dust by Feng Xiao moments ago. He raised his voice instead, silently cursing Feng Xiao. Gao Yi was skeptical. How can you be sure? The court has been establishing secret bases of operations within Qiaomo to gather intelligence for years, Chubuchu said coldly. Though we've yet to pinpoint the location of the 2 granaries, we've confirmed the existence of the armor. Yet even now, you deceive yourself into thinking Xing Mao won't mobilize troops. Or do you fancy that if he does, he'll let you go? Xing Mao didn't wish to enter open hostilities with the Su dynasty. He could simply bundle Gao Yi up and send him out of the city. Gao Yi might retain his life, but it'd be impossible for him to remain an official. The court would most likely indict him. Losing one's nation's territory was a grave crime. Gao Yi blanched. He thought back to the fierce confrontation between Duan Qihu and Xing Mao at yesterday's banquet and the surging undercurrents beneath. He thought of the ill readings his divinations had yielded over the past few days. He even thought of his ghost sighting the previous night, as well as the thousands weeping ghosts. Oh, did I smudge it? I don't think so. I think it's still okay. The 1,000 weeping ghosts Chubuchu had mentioned a moment ago. His thoughts tangled into a mess, and he was unable to make up his mind. Chubuchu had long known Gao Yi was a useless and talentless man. Any other day, he'd have pushed this man aside and simply rolled up his sleeves to do the job himself. But right then, their reinforcements had yet to arrive. The few people they had weren't enough. Ineffectual as he was, Gao Yi was a high-ranking official of the court, and behind him stood law and due process. His authority would make the task easier, as long as Gao Yi could be induced to cooperate. But even if Xing Mao is hiding armor, that doesn't necessarily mean he's thinking about rising up, right? His ancestors were the kings of Shanshan. That armor is his inheritance. Besides, these borderlands are always in turmoil. We're also close to the Khaganate here. He might just want to protect himself. Gao Yi had begun to come up with all kinds of excuses for Xing Mao. I've heard, replied Chubuchu, that after the 3rd round of drinks at Xing Mao's banquets, there's often a performance of the Songs of the Great Wind by Emperor Gaozu of Han. The great winds rise, oh! The clouds are driven away. I return to my native land, oh! Now the world is beneath my sway. Oh, hello, Esper Lady! We're almost done with chapter 54. We've had the reaction of the ghost well sighting. We've had, let's see... Duan Qihu had a not fun time with the ghost. Murdered some servants. Hello, Truffle. You arrived like right after Esper Lady. Welcome, both of you. So yeah, we had Chubuchu and Feng Xiao waking up to the ghost calling at the well. They caused some ghostly shenanigans themselves for Duan Qihu, and he's pissed. He's kind of thinking he's going a little crazy or someone's messing with him. And then now we're talking to Gao Yi, and it sounds like potentially Feng Xiao had dressed up as a ghost and gone and messed with Gao Yi, and now they're basically being like, "Hey, you do realize that like shit's about to go down in this town, and you need to kind of like prep and step up and be ready for this." Like, and he's kind of like, "No, no, 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 no. No worries, Truffle. We're just happy you're here." Did you have a good weekend? Both of you? Hot. Still hot. Hot. Oh, good. I'm glad you had a great weekend, Esper Lady. Hot. Yeah, there's definitely going to be shenanigans. So yeah. The court has been okay. So basically, Chubuchu told Gao Yi, "Hey, you do realize that like there's hidden armor, like caches and granaries and treasuries. Like they're things are about to get real quick. Got the cuffs done on my Chubuchu coat." Or they were just serged, but now they're completely done properly. That's awesome, Esper Lady. Spent most of your weekend packing. That's right. You said you were moving. Always fun. Okay. Okay. So, if Xing Mao didn't wish to enter open hostilities with the Su dynasty, he could simply bundle Gao Yi up and send him out of the city. Gao Yi might retain his life, but it'd be impossible for him to remain an official. The court would most likely indict it. Losing one's nation's territory was a grave crime. You're just going on a crime? On a trip? Going on a crime. Hopefully not. Okay. Why did I think you were moving? Was someone else moving? Is someone else moving? I swear one of you is moving. And have fun on your trip. I'm losing my mind. Like Gao Yi and Duan. Oh, goodness. Gao Yi blanched. He thought back to the fierce confrontation between Duan Qihu and Xing Mao at yesterday's banquet and the surging undercurrents beneath. He thought of the ill readings his divinations had yielded over the past few days. He even thought of his ghost sightings the previous night, as though the 1,000 weeping ghosts Chubuchu had mentioned a moment ago. Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking. His thoughts tangled into a mess, and he was unable to make up his mind. Chubuchu had long known Gao Yi was a useless and talentless man. Harsh, but kind of fair at this point. Any other day, he'd have pushed this man aside and simply rolled up his sleeves to do the job himself. But right then, their reinforcements had yet to arrive. The few people they had weren't enough. Ineffectual as he was, Gao Yi was a high-ranking official of the court, and behind him stood law and due process. His authority would make their task easier, as long as Gao Yi could be induced to cooperate. But even if Xing Mao is hiding armor, it doesn't necessarily mean he's thinking about rising up, right? His ancestors were the kings of Shanshan. That armor is his inheritance. Besides, these borderlands are always in turmoil. We're all so close to the cognate here. He might just want to protect himself. Gao Yi had begun to come up with all kinds of excuses for Xing Mao. I've heard, replied Chu, that after the third round of drinks at Xing Mao's banquets, there's often a performance of The Song of the Great Wind by Emperor Gaozu of Han. The great wind rises, oh, the clouds are driven away. I return to my native land, oh, now the world is beneath my sway. That song is spread everywhere and is sung among the people, Gao Yi replied feebly. Xing Mao is familiar with Han culture. He's practically a Han himself. I'm sure he doesn't mean anything by it. See, there's obliviousness and there's purposely not paying attention to what's going on. Chu sneered. I've heard another story. The year Magistrate Gao arrived and took office, Xing Mao and Duan Qihu each sent you a messenger, one bearing a white fish and the other a precious blade. The metaphor, a white dragon in fish clothes, used to describe nobility disguised as commoners, was a well-known one, tracking back to Liu Xiang's Garden of Stories from the Han Dynasty, which depicted Wu Shishu's admonition to the king of Wu during the spring and autumn period. Xing Mao's message was plain. Meanwhile, the precious blade was Duan Qihu's threat, warning him that he shouldn't dream of meddling here. The mightiest dragons couldn't defeat a snake in its own territory. Even if he were a Sioux official, Duan Qihu would have no problem slitting his throat. I don't know if he's trying to cover his butt or if he's just that incompetent, but I appreciate the sussing out of details, Truffle. Gao Yi was well versed in classics. He'd understood at once what these objects implied. As for Duan Qihu's threat, it was arrogant, but there was no real need to be afraid. The man hadn't been proclaiming his ambitions to Gao Yi, only testing his reaction. But Gao Yi was a coward. He'd reported Xing Mao's ambitions in a memorial, and that was the extent of it. The court had no energy to spare for the city, and thus he had comfortably whittled away his life in Qiamo. He'd never considered contending with Duan Qihu and Xing Mao to try and take back the city. Xing Mao, on the other hand, learned much about Gao Yi's character from this incident. He grew even more unrestrained and didn't take Gao Yi seriously at all. If there was a ranking for the biggest slackers in the world, Gao Yi's name would undoubtedly appear. He might even make the top 3. He was only lucky he wasn't Chu's subordinate. The Lord Chief would have had Xiao Xian toss him in a river of fish food long ago. Gao Yi hadn't expected Chu would know these details. Embarrassed, he smiled bitterly and pleaded his case. Chu Langjun is wise. It's not that I don't wish to help. Your lordship has been here for just a few days, but you must have seen it yourself. Xing Mao is powerful. Duan Qihu is imperious. Rather than putting ourselves in the middle, we should wait for them to clash, then reap the benefits. The idea itself wasn't unreasonable, but Xing Mao and Duan Qihu were no fools. Would they really sit on their hands while Gao Yi profited from their conflict? On top of being as timid as a mouse, Gao Yi was also stubborn and inflexible. Chu had no interest in continuing to convince him. It's fine if you don't want to get involved, he said, rising. I'll take charge, but it must be in your name. Gao Yi opened his mouth to refuse and met Chu's frigid gaze. The words froze on his lips. Peng Xiang was unruffled. Gao Yi, if you're to drink, drink of the victory wine, not the poison cup. If we wish to harm you, we would only need to say the word. But we're all officials of the same court. We must have somewhat of an alliance, mustn't we? If nothing changes, you'll be haunted by vengeful ghosts day in and day out. Long before Xing Mao kills you, you'll exhaust your vital yang energy and perish. For Gao Yi, being haunted by ghosts was a more terrifying prospect than getting off by Xing Mao. He began to waver. Eventually he said, "I'm feeling unwell at the moment, so I'll be closing my door to guests. Chu Jun's plans are his own." In other words, he would give tacit approval to Chu Chu's actions. After they left the county office, Feng Xiao turned to Chu Chu. "How did you know a ghost would get him to compromise?" "When I was preparing to head to Liugang City 2 months ago, I had someone pull every file pertaining to the route between Liugang City and the Western Cognate. That included one on the cowardly Qiaomo County magistrate who still believes in divinations." Feng Xiao gave Chubuchu an appraising look. 2 months ago, Chubuchu had already investigated everything he thought he might need and memorized Gao Yi's proclivities and weaknesses. And as soon as he'd set foot in Xiaomo, he'd began to think of ways to provoke Duan Qihu and Xing Mao. "Your admiration is flattering but unnecessary. I simply thought several steps ahead of you." Chubuchu's tone was light, his smile reserved. Feng Xiao shook his head. "No, I was just thinking it's little wonder you're shorter than me and in such poor health. You spend all your energy plotting against others." The corner of Chubuchu's mouth quirked up. "It's true, I'm in poor health. Maybe I can't bounce around aimlessly all day like you do, but are you positive you're taller than me? Aren't the soles of your shoes thicker than most?" Feng Xiao's smile was enigmatic. "I know I'm taller than you," he said, "because I'm longer." Chubuchu stared at Feng Xiao. For a few seconds, he said nothing. "Why is your lordship looking at me like that? Your wife is so scared. Her little heart is going pitter-pattering away." As he sat silent, Chubuchu recalled. Back when he'd fallen into Feng Xiao's hands and been poisoned with incense of helplessness, he'd spent day and night in a dazed slumber. The maids must have changed his clothes, and he was sure Feng Xiao had seen him then. This man's face was thicker than the Great Wall. He didn't know the meaning of the word shame. So we have another tick to the shamelessness counter. So we are at 12. Chubuchu was beyond numb to it all. He kept his face blank and brushed right past the comment. "Tonight, let's make sure Magistrate Gao runs into the ghost again." "Are you so sure Xing Mao will make his move?" "If our surmise is correct, there are two factions who wish Duan Qihu dead," Chubuchu spoke confidently. "One is the third steward and Yushiu, and the other was responsible for the poisoned wine. The third steward may share an unknown connection with the poisoner. Xing Mao is also looking for his chance. So we'll fan the flames and make the threat of this thousand weeping ghosts even more explosive. Xing Mao has waited so many years. He's long grown impatient. He's certain to make his move." All right, just a second. There's like one muscle in my back that's just going. I worked out today and I think I twitched it. It's okay. I'll find out tomorrow if I actually did something bad to it. That or I'll just make it worse. Alright. I'm actually gonna blow my nose first. Oh, it'll probably be fine. I'm just like sitting here, I'm like, thank you though. Alright. 119.30. Sorry, I'm just double checking my nails. I think they're still good. Oh no, you fell down? That's no good. Oh yeah, don't give me too many props. That's the first time I've worked out in like 2 weeks. Okay. Chapter 55. No one could match Chu when it came to whipping up a storm. From the moment they left the county office, rumors raced through Chiamo. Magistrate Gao's residents heard a ghost crying. In the middle of the night, some said. Others whispered, a strange case from 20 years ago has resurfaced. Much of the rumor-mongering was the work of spies placed by the Shu Yue Bureau and Jijian Bureau. Humans were naturally drawn to excitement. This kind of ghost story needed hardly any fuel to spread like wildfire. News of the inn's haunting the previous night had also spread. When Chu and Peng Xiang returned, they heard a guest in the hall on the first floor describing the experience in vivid detail to a friend. The well back there? Can you see it? The moaning noises were coming from inside. I'm telling you, it was terrifying. I could hear it even with the blankets pulled over my head. Oh, it's too sad. Which family's lady met such a tragic end? I'm walking a lot today and hauling my scope around. I'm wife, so I totally get the workout twinges. Yeah. Hope you feel better too then, Truffle. I don't know, but I looked in the well earlier. I couldn't even see the bottom. Who knows if it's really dry? This inn really is cursed. How long has it been since the last haunting? But the county office is so far from here. How did the ghost get all the way to the magistrate's residence? Doesn't that just prove how terrible the ghost's death was? The victim couldn't get justice, so they became a vengeful spirit, growing more ferocious by the day. Magistrate Gao was sent here by the Sioux court. He must have the Emperor's aura about him. It makes sense for the woman's ghost to plead with him. Do you think Magistrate Gao will take up the case? Forget it! Magistrate Gao hasn't done a damn thing since he arrived. You're not from around here, so you might not know. Recently, 2 vegetable sellers got into a fight and one of them died. He didn't lift a finger then, so why should he or would he do anything now? Going to the king of Shanshan is probably a better idea. At least he'll do something. Chu and Feng Xiao, sitting at the next table over, heard this last remark loud and clear. The man was clearly, of course, referring to Xing Mao. Though far from his homeland, he still saw himself as a king. His flatterers addressed him as such to keep him happy, and over time the informal title had spread. Qiao didn't belong to anyone. Why shouldn't he set himself up as its king? Peng Xiao and Chu had been responsible for the ghosts that had haunted Gao Yi last night, but they had nothing to do with the haunting at the inn. Clearly, Chu wasn't the only one trying to stir up trouble. Chu didn't fear others causing trouble. He only feared the trouble was too little, that the chaos wasn't enough. Gao Yi draws an imperial stipend, yet he's been slacking on the job. Perhaps we should lend him a hand. Meng Xiao took his meaning at once. You're afraid Xing Mao might move first. That's right. Chu smiled faintly. This is a matter of law. If there's an injustice to be readdressed, Gao Yi should be the one to conduct the hearing. He stood and crossed the hall to the innkeeper. After a brief conversation, he took out some money and asked him to send someone down the well to search for bones. Must have been a lot of money, because I know how superstitious everyone seemed to be about this inn. Oh my goodness, look at that. I got a little curl at the top of my head. That's so cute. I look like an anime character. Oh, that's funny. Sorry, that's the ADHD kicking in right there. Thank you, Esper Lady. Over the years, rumors of the ghost in the well had led to a few busybodies trying to head down themselves. The innkeeper, however, was terrified they might really dig up something horrific and he would bear the blame. Thank you. When I was growing up, I used to have even shorter hair, and there was this one persistent, like almost cowlick hair. So it'd be this little curl in the middle of my forehead. And I had a love-hate relationship with it because it would like always be there. But yeah. I guess it came back. Okay. Over the years, rumors of the ghost in the well had led to a few busybodies trying to head down themselves. The innkeeper, however, was terrified they might really dig up something horrific and he would bear the blame. In any case, since there was no official present to investigate, he wanted as little trouble as possible. He'd asked someone to set a large stone over the well mouth long ago, sealing it shut to stop nosy guests from taking a peek. Thank you. Yet now Chu was here, handing him a hefty sum of money and claiming he'd been sent by Gao Yi. Yeah, no. I have my sister cut it whenever I see her because she knows how to cut it. But there was one time where I had super long hair and I donated it. And it was literally like one sausage curl and like some pretty awful bangs. And I called it my George Washington because it looked unfortunately like a powdered wig. That was a fun summer. Yeah. And since then, we have learned how our hair lies. Hello, Galactic. Welcome. So we've had some ghost shenanigans. There was ghost in the well, causing some trouble. Then ghost messing with Duan. Oh goodness, I can never remember his name. Duan Qihu. There we go. Yeah. He heard a voice bothering him and whispering about 20 years and revenge. And now, through some trickery, pretending to be a ghost and haunting Gao Yi, Chu and Feng Xiao have managed to convince Gao Yi to potentially try to be better. And this is them kind of starting to investigate the back well because they're like, someone's stirring up some shit. We're going to stir it up even more. So those are like the main points. And if I'm forgetting anything else, please feel free to add it in the chat. Those seem like the main points. But yeah. Let's see. Over the years, rumors of the ghost in the well had led to a few busybodies trying to head down themselves. The innkeeper, however, was terrified they might really dig up something horrific and he would bear the blame. In any case, since there was no official present to investigate, he wanted as little trouble as possible. He'd asked someone to set a large stone over the well mouth long ago, sealing it shut to stop nosy guests from taking a peek. Also, how are you doing? Yet now Chu was here, handing him a hefty sum of money and claiming he'd been sent by Gao Yi. The innkeeper was quickly swayed and called someone to move the stone. Soon enough, the porter tied a rope around his waist and lowered himself down to search. Word spread swiftly through the inn, and a crowd gathered to watch the excitement. With his skills, Feng Xiao could easily have completed the task without any rope at all, and the search would have gone much faster. But the dry well had been abandoned for years. Even if no water remained, there were still spots of lichen and who knew what kinds of crawling insects. Deputy Chief Feng refused. Part of that, too, is, like, he's also dressed as a woman right now, so, like, I'm not surprised he refused. Like, the cleanliness thing, of course, but, like, I don't see the nephew of the King of Kucha sending his wife down into the well as helping them keep their cover for the grand majority of people. So I could also see why he didn't do it then. Mainly, though, cleanliness issues. He sat with his legs crossed, looking down from the well's second-floor window with Chu. Shall we make a bet? On what? Whether they find bones in the well? No need to bet. You've already lost. Chu coughed twice. Cities on the border were all wind and sand, and the climate was dry. When Xiao Xian wasn't there to take care of him every step of the way, he paid little attention to his own body. After 2 days in the city, his cough had worsened again, and his throat was hoarse and dry. Why is that? Asked Peng Xiang. Chubuju's face was blank. Because after we arrived and heard those rumors from Cheng Cheng, I had someone throw a corpse down there. They'll definitely find it. Whether the bones were old or new, the common folk wouldn't care. As long as there were bones in the well, the hauntings must be real. And this ancient case must truly conceal an enormous injustice. The victim had been unable to rest in peace and transformed into a ghost to seek vengeance and plead for their wrongs to be readdressed. The story would spread further, the uproar grow and grow. Gao Yi had been tossed a hot potato. He couldn't stay out of the matter now. Duan Qihu, once rumors of the haunting in his estate spread as well, would also end up on the rack. If the original state of Jiamo had been a pot of warm water, Chubuchu's arrival had tossed a bundle of firewood under the stove and lit a match. Now that water was at a violent boil. Anyone could be a cunning fox. What was rare was the ability to see 3 steps ahead of the other foxes. Even Feng Xiao had to concede to Chubuchu when it came to scheming. Was there anything that Chubuchu couldn't predict? Peng Xiao wanted to ask, but refrained. Instead, he laughed. Chubuchu was baffled. What are you laughing about? Nothing, said Peng Xiao. If something so unpredictable did exist, something Chubuchu believed to be within his grasp, yet defied his predictions, wouldn't that be terribly interesting? I love how they have such different priorities. While the curious ran to the inn to watch the show, Duan Qihu was at home sneering over a letter from Chubuchu. Or rather, a letter that had been sent on Chubuchu's instructions, yet was in Gao Yi's name and stamped with Gao Yi's seal. Gao Yi refused to step forward, but Chubuchu had at least browbeaten him into writing a letter. The contents mentioned an old case from 20 years ago and invited Duan Qihu to visit and provide an explanation. There were no files, no statements from victims laying out their grievances. It was all just unfounded speculation. Certain local rumors were circulating. Some said that in Duan Qihu's youth, a young woman had hung herself after he'd betrayed her hopes. Others spoke of a blood debt he owed from his bandit days and warned the debtor had come to claim his life. Duan Qihu didn't sleep the entire night. Last night, a voice was heard wailing at the inn, and Gao Yi had seen a ghost. Duan Qihu's own haunting had left him ill at ease. Though the ghost hadn't appeared again in the latter half of the night, he'd still felt as if it was speaking beside his ear. Man, Duan Qihu was a martial artist, a strong and healthy man. Sleepless night was nothing to him. But right now, his mood was horrible, which could mean only one thing. Duan Qihu had a guilty conscience. Dun, dun, dun! Will your lordship go to see Gao Yi? Asked his steward. He'd overseen the Duan residence since its construction and was one of Duan Qihu's closest confidants. Of course I won't, sneered Duan Qihu. Gao Yi is a nobody. People call him magistrate because Great Su stands behind him, not because he's worthy of the title on his own. Steward Lin nodded. was staunchly loyal to Duan Qihu and never asked unnecessary questions. But he still had his responsibilities, so he ventured. Shall we send a reply to the letter or ignore it completely? Send someone to tell him I'm bedridden with illness, said Duan Qihu. Tell him I'll visit another day. He paused before asking, Did you hear or see anything last night? This lowly one saw nothing, said the steward, but I did hear the sound of weeping. Whoever made it must have been a top-notch martial arts master, because this lowly one couldn't catch them. Duan Qihu snorted. Where did Xing Mao manage to find such a skilled expert? But as he spoke, he realized something was off. Even if Xing Mao found someone to impersonate a ghost, how could they know about an event that had happened 20 years ago? He thought of the deaths of the third steward, Cheng Cheng, Li Fei, and the others, and felt the muscles in his face tense. I heard Gao Yi and the Yangji Inn also heard a ghost last night, said Steward Lin. There aren't that many ghosts in the world, Duan Qihu scoffed. This must be one of Xing Mao's schemes. At Steward Lin's look of confusion, he continued. He's wanted to move against me for a long time, but never had the chance. His plot to poison me at the banquet failed, but he's sure to come up with another. He'll take advantage of the hauntings to stir up the imaginations of the city, then send an assassin after me under the guise of a vengeful ghost, and pretend that he had nothing to do with it. As master and servant were talking, a report arrived. A corpse had been found in the dry well behind the Yangji Inn. The victim had been dead for a long time. Skin and flesh had crumbled to dust, leaving only stark white bones. Everyone in the surrounding neighborhoods had gone to watch the hubbub. Apparently, the nephew of the king of Kucha, a guest at the inn, had requested the remains be delivered to the county office, so Gao Yi might preside over the case. Steward Lin frowned. How should we handle this, my lord? Perhaps the lowly one should go make some inquiries with Gao Yi. He could tell Duan Qihu was shaken. Something must have really happened 20 years ago that he didn't want to talk about. It wouldn't do for the steward to question him further. He could only help his master resolve the issue before them as best he could. No need, Duan Qihu spoke through gritted teeth. Gao Yi is a coward, but Xing Mao will undoubtedly seize this chance to act. I've yet to repay him for last time, so why not pay it all in one go? Since he can no longer wait, we'll land the first strike. Wait until after midnight, then take our men to the Xing residence. We must fell Xing Mao in one blow. Steward Lin was stunned. Shouldn't we take more time to plan? Duan Qihu buzzed with anxiety. He was overcome by an unfamiliar sense of powerlessness. The feeling of knowing precisely where the enemy was, yet being unable to leap over and strike them dead. It's too late. Xing Mao has wanted sole dominion over Qiaomo for a long time. The first step is getting rid of me. But we are not unprepared. There are 50 elite guards I've had you train for the past few years. Though none are exceptional, they're still first-class fighters. If we can catch Xing Mao flat-footed, even with the help of that fake ghost of his, he won't be a match for us. Years of soft living had gradually worn away Duan Qihu's ambition and arrogance, but as he spoke now, he regained his confidence. Once Xing Mao is dead, who in Qiaomo can oppose me? It was thanks to his bold decisiveness that he climbed to his current position. Now, once again, Duan Qihu firmly believed he judged the situation correctly. Steward Lin had no further objections, but was still concerned for Duan Qihu's safety. If I take all 50 men, who will protect your lordship? Leave Ding and Bing behind. The rest will go with you. Duan Qihu's smile was cold. There's no way Xing Mao can respond that fast. If anyone comes here, whether human or ghost, I'll make sure to show them a good time. I'm truly curious as to who could emerge unscathed against my Vajra finger technique. In the Xing residence, Xing Mao's expression was like a fresh spring breeze, evidence of his good mood. Duan Qihu is powerful, but he's grown old. A toothless tiger is nothing to fear. He looked at the man before him, and his expression grew even fonder. Besides, everyone has turned their backs on him. Even you've betrayed him. Is he even still worthy of calling himself my rival? It's just as Duke Xing says. The man cupped his hands respectfully. In the past, Lord Meng Xiang had an enormous entourage of 3,000. He treated all of them as family and showed great respect for the wise. Now I shall show you the same treatment. Duan Qihu believes himself above everyone. No one is worthy of his attention. Even an old man like yourself, who followed him for so many years, must refer to yourself as lowly before him. How can a man like him be my equal in the city of Qiamo? Xing Mao stood and walked over, personally pulling the man to his feet. Then Xiang Sheng need not be so polite in front of me. I'm only grateful for Duke Xing's regard, said the man. But the 50 elite guards under Duan Qihu are all loyal to him and don't fear death. The group includes 2 of his most trusted subordinates, and I fear I have no authority over them. Xing Mao showed him a small smile. No matter. He's sent away all his best men, and the Duan residence has become an empty fortress. This is our chance to take it all in one fell swoop. Another voice spoke. After tonight, Qiamo will have to change its name to Xing. The pronouncement came from the white-clad monk sitting below Xing Mao. He was respectful as he offered his congratulations, but his attitude was neither arrogant nor sycophantic, with no hint of flattery. Xing Mao burst into laughter. Then I shall thank you, Xiang Sheng, in advance for his fortuitous words. Oh, we know where he went. Okay. Okay. One moment. Oh. Oh, my back finally popped. Oh, there we go. Where did my pen go? I just saw it. There it is. 142.45. Okay. Chapter 56. It was a night without moon or stars. Dark clouds smothered the sky, yet refused to shed rain or snow. Even the wind seemed to have died, leaving only an unbearable scorching heat that made sleep impossible. And indeed, Duan Qihu was not asleep. He'd sent his wife and children to the back courtyard early. Now he sat alone in the main hall as his subordinates surrounded the Duan residence. Although Duan Qihu's estate looked as quiet and as peaceful as on any other evening, it was already under heavy guard. Duan Qihu's crooked index finger tapped non-stop against the table. He was waiting for news of Steward Lin's surprise attack with his 50 fearless guard. Waiting for the audacious, vengeful ghost to make its return. In truth, no bitter grudge existed between Duan Qihu and Xing Mao. But one mountain could not hold 2 tigers. Both knew Qiamo could accommodate one king only. Yeah, I'm sorry, this turned off. Okay. Waiting for that audacious, vengeful ghost to make its return. In truth, no bitter grudge existed between Duan Qihu and Xing Mao. But one mountain could not hold two tigers. Both knew Qiao could accommodate one king only. They had gathered their strength, biding their time until they could land the fatal blow. Now, Duan Qihu couldn't wait any longer. The incident at the banquet had sparked a sense of crisis he'd never felt before. Xing Mao must be eliminated. This couldn't drag on another day. With restless thoughts came uneasy dreams. It was better to strike early than late. Rather than waiting to be killed, he must land that first blow. Tonight, success or failure depended on this move. He ordered someone to check the hourglass. Almost 11. The ghost had appeared around this time yesterday, and tonight... Duan Qihu laughed coldly. The Duan residence was brightly lit. Guards stationed at every corner. He refused to believe he'd missed the ghost's entrance. Yet at that moment, a frigid wind swirled in, carrying flowers and leaves into the hall. The guard at the door sneezed as its bone-piercing chill hit everyone full in the face. The lanterns flickered wildly and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Ah! Oh! The scream came from the northwest corner of the Duan residence, the back courtyard where the women lived. Oh, I was right. Ah! And the voice was all too familiar. Oh no, Duan Qihu's daughter, who had only recently come of age. Duan Qihu leapt up and rushed in the direction of the cry. As he passed, the lanterns above his head flickered out, one by one, as if planned. What was that? There's someone over there! Oh, I am messing up these voices. What was that? There's someone over there! The voices of the guards rose and fell, but all they could hear was the whistling wind. The enemy was nowhere in sight. That ill wind blew from every direction, carrying a voice that spoke into Duan Qihu's ear, both near and far away. Duan Qihu, pay blood for blood. Plenty recalled the rumors of the previous night's hauntings and the stories they had heard in the city of the 1,000 weeping ghosts. Panic spread throughout the residence. A ghost! Someone shouted in the darkness. No one knew what he'd seen or encountered. Screams and cries echoed one after another. But the guards of the Duan residence were well trained. Even in this atmosphere, they didn't run around blindly. Duan Qihu led his men towards the northwest corner and heard his daughter scream again. Ah! His heart thudded in his chest as he rushed in the courtyard. You know what? I'm going to mark that down of injustice to innocence because she didn't do anything. Her dad's just kind of one of like the kingpins in the city. Like she's honestly innocent. Like, I think. And she's stuck in this conflict by no choice of her own. So she gets an innocent counter. He saw his daughter lying on the ground, a bright slash of red across her neck. Her eyes were wide and a face twisted with terror, unable to rest in death. Yep, no, she earned that one. She definitely earned that counter. That was a little creepy. I look over and the injustice counter just went like floop. Maybe I like bent it down. But it just flicked up a little as I looked at it. Speaking of ghosts. Ay, ay, ay. Not the daughter. The maid scattered and fled as screams echoed unceasingly in the courtyard. Duan Qihu's wife had also rushed over from the neighboring courtyard. When she saw her daughter, she fainted dead away. Duan Qihu had never seen anyone killed by a ghost, but he knew the sword wound marring his daughter's neck was not the work of any spirit or demon. Come at me if you have the guts! You think it's impressive, killing unarmed women and children? He was like a wounded lion, roaring angrily into the void. Xing Mao! I know it's you! Get the hell out here! A gale swept towards him, bearing an unmistakable bloodlust. Duan Qihu dodged sideways and raised his arm. A flash of bright light shot straight at his enemy. Many in Xiamo knew of his Vajra finger technique, said to be exceedingly powerful. Few were aware he also had a preternatural skill with hidden weapons. Most who had witnessed it were in the underworld. He'd thought the speed of his strike fast enough to injure his opponent even if they dodged a fatal hit. But to his surprise, the black shadow he'd aimed at vanished midair, leaving the blade to bury itself in a nearby tree. Could it really be a ghost? But there was no such thing as ghosts! Duan Qihu had no time to be startled. An intense agony tore through his back, and he was flung forward. The guards rushed up, but none lasted beyond the first move. That's impressive, because usually we count like these fights like tens, hundreds, but the first move they got taken down. That's impressive. All were sent flying away. Some had their necks twisted and broken, perishing from a single strike. Others fell shrieking to the ground, gravely wounded. From start to finish, their assailant's goal remained Duan Qihu. The instant Duan Qihu stumbled to the ground, his attacker leapt over at a speed too fast to see. A force capable of overturning mountains and seas pulsed in Duan Qihu's eardrums, as if he was battered by a merciless roaring gale. By now, Duan Qihu understood this was no vengeful ghost, but a flesh-and-blood human, an expert among experts, with martial arts surpassing his own. Were he still in his prime, he might have escaped unscathed, but now his wife and children were here. He couldn't run. Even if he wanted to, it was impossible. A quick death is more kindness than you deserve. I want you to watch everyone close to you die, one by one. The words ended on the soft sound of a sigh, accompanied incongruously by a harsh and cutting palm blast. There was no time to use the Vajra finger technique. Duan Qihu channeled all his internal energy into his palm, pitting his full strength against his opponent. The one responsible for my deeds is me. Leave my wife and children out of it. He gritted his teeth, straining to catch a glimpse of his opponent's face. Pain spiked up his arm, and blood spurted. Duan Qihu toppled backwards. He panted heavily, still conscious, but the shockwave had damaged his meridians. He was already a toothless tiger. You! Who the fuck are you? Did Xing Mao send you here? My name is Yan Xuexing. The man before him was clad in black. He watched Duan Qihu, his face indifferent. You? The disciple from Linjuan Academy? Duan Qihu suddenly remembered. You are behind the poison at the banquet. Why are you doing this? He had never seen this man before, or even offended Southern Chen's Linjuan Academy. They were like a well and a river, their waters never mingling. Yan Xuexing bared his teeth in a cold smile. It wasn't me who tried to poison you. Blame yourself for having too many enemies. Countless people want you dead. As for Peng Xiang, I killed him because he deserved to die, just like you. There's no grudge between me and Linjuan Academy, past or present, Duan Qihu cried. This has nothing to do with Linjuan Academy. You need only remember me, Yan Xuexing. What few experts remained among Duan residents' guards were no match for Yan Xuexing and couldn't stop him. Linjuan Academy's high-ranking disciples deserved their reputation. This man's martial arts were beyond compare. No mere guard could oppose him. He caught the women and children in the courtyard one by one, throwing them to the ground and sealing their acupoints. Tears streamed down their faces, yet they couldn't make a sound. All right, that's at least one more injustice to innocence. Like, one, maybe two. Like, we're putting down one for right now, but like that's pretty awful. Duan Qihu bitterly regretted sending the steward and his 50 elite guards away. With them, he'd at least have stood a fighting chance. Whom do you want to die first? Yan Xuexing took slow steps toward the Duan family. To men like you, women are no different from clothes. When one is gone, you can simply pick another. Let's kill your favorite concubine first. Duan Qihu's chest throbbed with muted pain as he swallowed down blood. He looked at his daughter's corpse lying on the ground and roared, Kill me if you must, but I deserve to know the reason. Why are you doing this? You're helping Xing Mao act against me. Do you think he's any better? He'll abandon you as soon as he gets what he wants. Yan Xuexing shook his head. I don't know any Xing Mao. No one can order me around. Yan Gonzi, since you've made up your mind, why bother talking to him? Just start killing them. He'll figure it out eventually. With an airy laugh, a woman in yellow appeared on the roof. Duan Qihu's eyes widened as he saw what she clutched in her hand. It was a bead, carved from jade and hollowed out to enclose 2 more layers, so that the entire exquisite object formed 3 spheres, one nestled inside the other. Rumor had it that this was a secret treasure from the imperial palace of the Western Jin dynasty. It drifted from person to person for centuries before it landed in Duan Qihu's hands, an item almost as precious as the jade of Heaven Lake. Duan Qihu treasured it greatly and kept it hidden in a secret storehouse, only occasionally taking it out to toy with. Even his wife didn't know the location of his private cache, yet this stranger had discovered it. Trying not to smudge my eye makeup, but my eye is itchy. Oop, that didn't work. Ignore. Okay, I think it's fine. The woman in yellow curled her fingers into a fist, and the priceless jade bead was crushed to fine powder. Dust trickled between her fingers and drifted away with the wind. This author really likes crushing or destroying precious objects. They really do. She smiled at the way Duan Qihu's eyes popped out. Heartbroken? She asked. But these were all things you gained through robbery. They never belonged to you in the first place. It's been 20 years. Do you still remember the blood debt you owe? The woman opened her mouth and her voice changed. Clearly, this was the ghost from the previous night. All right. Oh, that poor daughter in the bottom corner. I almost feel like blocking it. Like, don't look. That one's a little extra gruesome, so I'm gonna block that one. Yeah. That one's a rough picture. Those eyes are haunting. All right. Duan Qihu understood at once. This woman could mimic all kinds of voices. Yan Xuexing stopped in front of Duan Qihu's beloved concubine. The woman's face was a mask of fear, her complexion snow white, yet she couldn't move an inch. She was a pitiable sight, but he showed no mercy. He reached out and wrapped his fingers around her neck, gripping it tightly. Suddenly, Yan Xuexing's expression shifted. He threw aside the woman and leapt backward. The yellow-clad woman sitting on the eaves, too, vanished, hiding herself in the shadows. Everyone else only saw a pale flash as a person appeared where Yan Xuexing had stood. Peng Xiang smiled. It's my husband's fault for dallying. I've arrived too late and missed the beginning of the show. He'd never been one to keep a low profile. Though he was still in women's clothes, his eyes were bright and his wide sleeves flapped in the wind. His aura was oppressive, neither feminine nor masculine. Even Yan Xuexing took a few more steps back. Who are you? My friend, all debts have their debtors, Peng Xiang said pleasantly. If you have a grudge against Duan Qihu, then kill him. Why are you dragging your feet? Ah, but since you wanted to make your move, if you wish to go now, you'll just have to ask me first. Yan Xuexing didn't bother arguing. He attacked Feng Xiao without another word. Both moved with incredible speed. In a blink, they'd exchanged 10 or more blows. The bystanders glimpsed clothes whirling, the flurry of palms transforming, but it was impossible to see any of their moves clearly. Zhu Chu had arrived as well. He was no martial artist, so he couldn't drop from the sky as Feng Xiao had. He had to walk in on 2 legs like any ordinary person. Yan Xuexing and the woman in yellow had kindly left the Duan residence guards strewn across the ground. There was no one to bar his entry, so he strode through the main gate with no trouble at all. Catching sight of the woman in yellow, he said, Madam Peng Xiang, it's been a while. Hello, Taoist Master Chu. Though it hasn't been that long. Peng Xiang's lips curved into a smile. Neither showed any trace of embarrassment or awkwardness. They acted like old friends reuniting, familiar and natural. Since when has the Hehuan sect started collaborating with Linchuan Academy? I had no idea. You've misunderstood, Taoist Master Chu, said Peng Xiang. Yan Gonzi has defected from his sect. This trip was purely for his personal revenge, but he intends to join Hehuan sect. Naturally, I must give our sect's new elite member a warm welcome and help him out a little. Personal revenge? Peng Xiang smiled. Would you like to hear a story? Keep it short. 20 years ago, a family of merchants passed through Qiaomo on their way to Kucha. Along the way, they encountered bandits who took not only their goods, but their lives. The bandits killed everyone in the convoy, not sparing the women and children of the family. Only a pair of siblings escaped the slaughter. But they weren't martial artists, and they couldn't get far. The young sister took her little brother and hid in a nearby hunter's cottage. You speak as if you witnessed it. Are you perhaps that sister? No, but Yan Gonzi is the brother. As for the sister, she's long gone. You can guess what happened. That to death by the bandits. When the hunter discovered the fleeing siblings, not only did he fail to show them kindness and hide them, he prevented them from escaping. The sister stirred his lust, so he held her down and we're gonna pop. Speaking of trigger warnings, this one's pretty gruesome. I'm gonna pop a trigger warning starting around 202. Yeah. That even with me not reading it full, that's yeah. Yeah. When the group of bandits caught up, they joined in, taking the sister as spoils of war. An internet merchant also passed by. The group of bandits, high on their victory, asked the merchant to join them in their activity. At first, the merchant didn't want to, but he was afraid the bandits might kill him if he refused. In the end, he couldn't resist his evil impulses, and he too became one of them. With the sister in their grasp, the group paid no heed to the younger brother, a child who couldn't run far by himself. But in a stroke of luck, the brother managed to escape. He hid in the dark and witnessed his sister's death from beginning to end. That's dark. Chubuchu understood. That's... Chubuchu understood. Duan Qihu was one of the bandits. Peng Xiang smiled. Not only was he one of the bandits, he was their leader and gave the order to do this to the girl. So, what do you think? Does he deserve to die? Should he be killed now or later? Shouldn't we deny him a quick death? Duan Qihu heard these words too. He'd long since remembered those events of 20 years ago, or he wouldn't have been so fearful when it was brought up. But he'd thought no one knew this story and the other participants would never reveal their own crimes. Never had he expected the young brother would escape the jaws of death and return, much less that he'd become a disciple of Linchuan Academy and gain the skills he needed to seek revenge. Yeah. I'm going to put another injustice for the sister, because that is, like, that was awful. That was really rough. Yeah, no, this guy deserves whatever he has coming to him, and then some. Chubuchu nodded. If it happens as you say, he deserves to die. I wasn't the only one who took part that day, Duan Qihu roared. So why is it only me? His expression transformed into one of panic. Li Fei, Cheng Cheng, Peng Xiang, and him, the itinerant merchant, the hunter, and the bandits. They'd originally been strangers whose paths had only crossed thanks to the incident. Afterward, they'd parted and gone their separate ways. None had thought the encounter important. None had taken it to heart. One by one, they'd all died. Everyone who'd participated in that monstrous crime had perished, one by one. Duan Qihu hadn't thought in this direction, but as he connected the dots point by point, he realized not a single one of them had escaped. I am not sorry that none of them escaped. All right. All right. Whew. That was really rough. I'm gonna take a second. I'm really sorry to anyone who was watching that watching live that was triggered by that, or later, or has had any experience even remotely close to that. You are here. We care. It's not the end, but God, I'm so sorry if that ever happened to you. But yeah. You survived and you are here. And we are happy to have you. All right. Hopefully there will be something a little more uplifting in this coming chapter, because I would not like to end on this note. This is a rather rough note, so I'm kind of thankful that we have one more chapter tonight. All right. Chapter 57 will start at 2:08:45. All right. Chapter 57. While Chubuchu chatted with Bing Xian, the figures of Feng Xiao and Yan Xuexing parted, aligning on the eaves at opposite ends of the courtyard. To a layperson, they looked evenly matched, but Yan Xuexing knew. Though he was the standout among Linchuan Academy's younger generation, he was a notch below the person before him. when had such a powerful female expert appeared in the Jianghu? May I ask the lady's esteemed name? My surname is Chu. I don't use my maiden name. Chu was speechless. Peng Xiang snickered. What sect is Chu Niangzi from? Xuexing asked. Who is your master? Peng Xiao smiled. Why should I tell you? Xuexing released a slow breath as if trying to control his temper. He'd encountered more than one troublesome woman on this trip. Though some things had improved in recent years, the world remained dominated by men, and so did the Jianghu. Women wandered the Jianghu, but very few were outstanding talents. Yet it seemed today they had planned their appearances so Xuexing could meet them all. For example, Peng Xiang and this Chu Niangzi before him now. Xuexing had no time to waste on this woman. His goal tonight was to torment the Duan family and kill Duan Qihu, to make Duan Qihu suffer as much as possible before dying. Peng Xiao stood in his way. Duan Qihu slaughtered my family. He defiled and killed my sister, he spat. If I don't take revenge, I'd be unfit to call myself a man. If Chu Niangzi shares no friendship with Duan Qihu, Duan Qihu, please stand aside. I will owe you a debt and make sure to repay you. Peng Xiao arched one brow. Repay me how? Xuexing suppressed his anger. As long as what you ask is not immoral, I will do all I can. Duan Qihu had dominated Qiamo for decades, surrounded by the flattery and praise of others. Even Gao Yi, sent by the Su dynasty itself, showed him the utmost courtesy. He'd never been so powerless as he was now, lying like meat on a chopping board. In his bandit days, he hadn't feared death. He'd sustained plenty of grave injuries and spent days licking blood from his wounds, all to earn this wealthy, comfortable life. But the more he possessed, the more he desired to live. When he saw Peng Xiao apparently swayed by Xuexing's words, he shouted, Didn't you want to know my secrets? I'll tell you! So help me! I'll tell you all my secrets! So you really do know Yushiu? Asked Chubuchu. I do! He cried. Chubuchu snorted. Duan Qihu. I may not know martial arts, but my skills are unmatched when it comes to reading people's words and expressions. You previously said you'd never heard of Yushiu. That was true. Now you're claiming to know him. It seems to me you're trying to deceive us to save your own skin. Do you actually know anything that makes you worth saving? I do! Roared Duan Qihu. I know something! Have you heard of the 13 floors of Yunhai? I know their secrets, so save me! I'll tell you everything. The 13 floors of Yunhai? Chubuchu looked pensive. It's true I'm curious about them, but not curious enough to save your life. Prove what you know is worth the exchange. Duan Qihu's eyes were bloodshot. He was bent on preserving his life. He had no thought for anything else. The 13 floors of Yunhai isn't just an organization that trades money for lives. The 13 floors represent 13 people in 13 sections. I'm ranked 12th among them, so I'm known as Xi'er Xiangsheng. Is that valuable enough for you? Chubuchu frowned. He suddenly remembered something. During the case of the murdered Cochinese envoy, one of the perpetrators, Xuexing, had confessed to being a disciple of the Buyeo sect in Goguryeo. The person who had sent him and Qin Miaoyu to the Central Plains was a high-ranking member of the Buyeo sect they called Yi Xiangsheng I. That name was all they knew of him. At the time, Chubuchu and Peng Xiao had speculated that someone using one as their alias must be an extraordinary person with lofty aspirations. Since there was a 1, why shouldn't there be a 2, 3, 4, or even 11 and 12? Could this Yi Xiansheng be related to the 13 floors of Yunhai? If so, the scale and foresight of the organization was astonishing. Not only did they have roots in Goguryeo, they'd recruited Duan Qihu out in the western borderlands. Their influence was vast, from north to south and east to west, throughout northern Su and southern Chen, even reaching into the major sects of the Jianghu. It was likely they had even more allies that Chubuchu had yet to discover. Chubuchu's thoughts flashed like sparks. He instantly made the decision to save Duan Qihu's life. Boo! No! I disagree. I disagree hardcore. Kill him. Kill him dead. Oh. Kill him. They'd previously suspected Duan Qihu and Yushu had some grudge between them and had hoped uncovering it would reveal the reason for Yushu's presence in Xiamo. They hadn't imagined they'd stumble over an astonishing secret about the 13 floors of Yunhai. Though Peng Xiang exchanged no word or glance with Chubuchu, he'd come to the exact same conclusion. He shrugged at Yuan Xuexing. You heard him. He's offering to purchase his life with a secret, and it's one I'm quite interested to hear. Why don't you do me a favor and return in a few days to kill him? Yan Xuexing's reply was ground between his teeth. Impossible. I've waited more than 10 years for this day. Now that it's finally here, I won't just kill him. I'll kill every member of the Duan family in front of him, then carve him to pieces. I'll give him a taste of what it's like to watch his family die in front of you. Peng Xiang raised a brow. A debt is a debt, but no matter how pompous Duan Qihu's wives and children are, they didn't kill your family. Didn't the disciples of Linchuan Academy claim to be students of Confucius? They love talking about morality, benevolence, and righteousness. Did your master condone this? Morality, benevolence, and righteousness. Can these bring my family back to life? Can they go back and stop those demons from violating my sister? Yan Xuexing laughed, then scanned the quivering members of the Duan family with mocking eyes. They've enjoyed their glory and wealth that Duan Qihu brought them. It's only right they die with him too. If he was a man of courage and integrity, he would have exiled himself in atonement long ago. He'd have refused to spend wealth tainted with human blood. Killed his daughter with a single slash. I didn't recruit anyone to follow his example and humiliate his daughter in front of him. That alone was an enormous act of benevolence. Before he finished speaking, he sprang into action. Yan Xuexing knew he wasn't Feng Xiao's equal. If he wanted to kill Duan Qihu, he needed an opportunity. He'd spoken partially to vent his misery, but more so to mask his intentions. With Feng Xiao here, Yan Xuexing's plan to torture and kill the Duan family wouldn't work. He chose to strike Duan Qihu with a single killing blow. Any hesitation would wreck his chances. The night was dark, and in the dim light of the distant lanterns, Yan Xuexing looked like a lone and ethereal swan. He was so fast, even Peng Xiang could hardly see him, never mind Chubuchu. But no matter how fast he moved, his goal could only be Duan Qihu. Peng Xiao also moved. He took an ordinary step, his footwork unremarkable. Absent was his signature peacock-like style, where he aimed to intentionally dazzle onlookers. Ordinary step, his footwork unremarkable. Absent was his signature peacock-like style, where he aimed to intentionally dazzle onlookers. The move was completely straightforward. He dropped down from the eaves, sleeve raised like a legendary bird in flight, and landed right on top of Yan Xuexing. The maneuver appeared basic, but Yan Xuexing felt an immense pressure bearing down on his head, like his entire body was about to be crushed. He blanched and quickly gave off offensive for defensive. Bending at the waist, he swept forward and slammed his palms into the ground, flying right back into Peng Xiang. In a flash, they'd exchanged over a dozen blows. A confrontation between two such experts was a rare sight. In other circumstances, Chubuchu might have sat down to savor the experience. But Peng Xiang didn't simply watch Yan Xuexing fall in defeat. She was trying to recruit him into the Yihuan sect. She darted forward as well. As soon as she joined the fray, the fight seemed to tilt in their favor, but only for a moment. In the face of greater adversity, Feng Xiao grew even stronger. He didn't lose the upper hand at all. Yan Xuexing saw that Feng Xiao had been holding back before, merely toying with him. Duan Qihu was seriously injured, but he'd never relinquished his desire to escape. Seeing the three of them occupied fighting each other, he edged towards a dark corner. Yet he suddenly found someone standing in front of him. Chu Chu. Duan Qihu thought very little of this man who knew no martial arts. But right then, he himself was much better off. He lowered his voice. I've hidden many treasures over the years. Let me go, and I'll tell you where to find them. I'm not interested in treasure, said Chu Chu. But if you tell me about the 13 floors of Yunhai, I'll spare your life. My wife will also shield you from them. Once this is over, you can escape. Duan Qihu smiled bitterly. Members of the 13 floors of Yunhai must abide by its rules. We're forbidden from leaking even a single word. If I talk, death awaits me. But you've talked just now, said Chu. He looked over at Feng Xiao and shouted, Wife of mine! Duan Qihu refuses to cooperate. No need to exhaust yourself. Let Yan Xuexing kill him. Peng Xiao was fighting 2-on-1, yet he still had the breath to say, Of course, dear. I always listen to my husband. I'll talk! Duan Qihu cried. I'll talk! What do you want to know? Do you know Yu Xiu or not? Is Yu Xiu a member of the 13 floors of Yunhai? I don't know him. I've never heard of such a person. The 13 floors of Yunhai are composed of 13 directors, each in charge of a section. Though I'm a director, I only know of the 2 before and after me. I don't know anything about the others. Out of a total of 13 members, Duan Qihu was the 12th. Xiang. Before him must be the 11th. Xiang. And after him had to be the 13th. Sheng. Who are they? Asked Chu. Shi Yi is a monk named Yu Hang. Shi San is a woman named Feng Xiaolian. Setting aside whether this Yu Hang the monk was actually Yu Xiu, Chu was astonished to hear the second name. Gao Wei's favorite concubine, Feng Xiaolian? That's right, called Duan Qihu. Feng Xiaolian, a woman so beautiful her lord could charge 1,000 gold pieces per glance. Anyone with the slightest understanding of world affairs knew the fame of this bewitching concubine. After the Emperor of Su usurped the Shou dynasty, Feng Xiaolian was given to a Su official as a reward. As far as Chu knew, she'd perished in some harm in fighting. Peerless beauty of her generation had died too young, and many lovers of women had mourned her passing. If this woman was really Shi San Xian Shang of the 13 floors of Yunhai, she must have faked her own death. And that is where we are ending tonight. That was definitely a more intense and rough chapter or stream than usual. So I hope that everyone stays safe, is all right, mind the triggers. I'll put a little mini description of what the trigger is describing in the description when I'm marking up timestamps. We'll also make sure it is timestamped. I was a little generous with the beforehand. So hopefully it covers when I started reading and everything after it as well. But yeah, I feel bad saying I hope you enjoyed tonight's stream, but I enjoyed having you here while I read. So yeah, they better not save his life. I hope they do kind of like Genie Wish logic with him, and he dies a terrible, terrible death now rather than later. Or like very, very close to now. But yeah, on a slightly better note than where we could have ended, we'll read more tomorrow. This is my reminder. We have a different schedule this week and next week. We will be doing Tuesday and Wednesday. So I hope to see you tomorrow at 8. Again, have a safe, healthy night. Maybe watch some cute fluffy kittens or puppies, and have a good night, everybody. To anyone watching later, I hope you minded the tags and stayed safe. See you next time. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, Annika. Night.